And by the light of this lovely day, I can show you the final result. It is so nice to know this will latch securely. Hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on this classic wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia with my lovely fiancée Andrea, all the while fixing it and another one up for some pretty ambitious cruising. If that's the sort of thing you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. We'd love to have you. Well indeed, you may have noticed that MV Poem is sporting her door again. Well, without giving too much away, let's jump back in time and figure out how we got here. It's been a hard go. It's been raining a lot. Well, good morning. We have a few moments between rain squalls. We have another one coming. So let's talk about gaining for this door latch. Right here you can see it's starting to make some scratches in the jamb, in the stain from having closed it a few times. So my technique for this is basically find the point vertically, which I've already marked off, and decide how far in the actual strike is gonna go, this little piece here. Now, getting this wrong is very annoying because it's held in by wood screws and it's very hard to move it just a little bit. So my technique is to actually do the mortise first that you require so that the bolt can go past this hole in the striker plate. And it's much easier to shave a little bit off that and very gently see where the door latches and then install this right against the edge of the mortise I'd cut. You'll see what I mean. Now I do wish I'd brought a smaller chisel to do this work, so I'm having to do this with the knife, but it'll do for what I'm doing today. Okay, I have a tiny little mortise. Let's see what that feels like. Okay, that is too far in to engage at all, so I'll expand it towards me. There we go. So that is now just caught. So we know I have the mortise in exactly the right spot. I have to make sure I put pilot holes, or I will be abusing the poor stuff. Okay, time to cut it out. Welcome back. Today it's refinishing, so I have to get some stain on the areas that I had to sand through, but to do that neatly I'm actually going to just scuff up all the existing varnish to make it uniform and then do very gentle stain work over the whole thing. Okay, here we go. And finally, good old stain. And there we go, first round of staining. It'll need a little more attention down in here where I'm having to feather in, but I've done that before and that should work out just fine. All right, it's been pouring rain for days and I'm on my third coat on the door here, so hopefully we can get that back aboard soon. But I'm making use of this time to tidy up because next week we start again forward. For those of you who've been following along for a while, Last winter I was able to advance the forward head, and I'm going to do that same work in the forward cabin so that next summer we'll have someplace to live on this boat while we do quite a bit of work. Okay, so we got 4 coats on here, a little gloppy, no doubt. Got the latch set back on. It's ready to go back over to Pome. And I've managed to clear out the forecastle and the forward head and really move a lot of stuff into here. And now we're ready to carry on in here next week. And this is going to be a lot of fun. For those of you who have been here for a while, you remember the fun we had up in here last spring. And that will carry on down into the bottom half because we need to finish this up, including a vanity with a sink to starboard. And I've just ordered the sink. There'll be another toilet here, another electric Raritan Marine Elegance, and over here will be another small little vanity. All of that we get to build, as well as moving back here. This old bunk will come out, and there'll be a new one that's built all the way over to the door. Many years ago I moved the door over so that this could become an almost double-sized bunk on this side. Of course it ends up being fairly pointy at the foot end, but that'll be just fine. So this will become our spare cabin or guest cabin, and this will all get that same detail we have forward. Lots to be done over here as well. The entire electrical bay here will be reconfigured other than the main panel. And this will go back to being a nav station, a little office here. And then forward of that will be the hanging locker that I'd had temporarily here for years. This whole configuration worked out really well. I loved it. So the urgency to get this done, and when I say urgent, it has to be done before next spring, is that we'll be back aboard Geordie next summer, but working all summer. Some great portion of that will be at a haul out where we do a lot of work to the bottom, and a great portion of that will be in a shed somewhere, I believe, doing the cabin sides. So the entire aft end of the boat, in other words everything aft of this bulkhead, will be a work zone. So this will all, Andrea and I will have to be able to live up here, which I think we can pull off, especially if we get it to look really nice. The complication is I'm going to have to sister new frames in between these frames up forward, so that work has to be able to happen while we're still living in here. So I have to put stuff together in such a way that it can come apart quickly, do some work quickly, replace some stuff down here, and put it back together. Anyway, we have time to figure out how that's all going to happen starting next week. Another evening door install. Hopefully this is the final one. And by the light of this lovely day, I can show you the final result. It is so nice to know this will latch securely. It's so nice to know water won't weep in underneath. It's so nice to know water won't get into the wood here at the joint. It's so nice to know that the hinges are secure, and it is also so nice to have the windows lined up. That was a bit of an indulgence, but it all worked out really well. Now, I'm not quite finished. Have a bit of a problem with water entering in the top, so we need a drip here that's basically going to sit in underneath the door frame here and cast out over. Let's go have a stab at it. So I'm going to make those drip edges out of aluminum. Of course I would have loved to find bronze or perhaps brass, but the truth is this is such a discreet little piece of metal, and by the time I varnish it a few times, because I'm not going to be able to avoid it anyway, aluminum will just fine. And the main thing is I have some and it's easy to work. So I have to rip 2 strips. Happily, a nice carbide table saw blade will happily cut aluminum, but eye protection is absolutely essential. Sorry about that. Isn't it cool the way, even though there's plenty of depth, it peels off a little strip? You people familiar with more metal cutting than I am, let me know about how that happened. Cool. So carrying on with my little drip edges here, what I want to do is form a slight fold here on the outer edge so that it will fold down and create a bit of a drip edge, as you might imagine. Years ago I actually had a sheet metal break and it would have been a piece of cake. In lieu of that, look at that, it's exactly the same width. I'm going to clamp it between these two pieces of white oak, which are pretty substantial, and put a bit of a bend on it. 1/4 inch, we say, right about there. Okay then, and then to actually form it, it doesn't need to be such a crisp piece. We'll just use this and put a little bend in. Need some better clampage going on here. Okay, I gotta get a little more serious with the clampage here. I'll probably do this the other way, just making it extra awkward to handle. We do have an awkward mess here now. Let's see if we can form that now. We're just flexing the clamps open. Okay, I am not going to be deterred. This is some serious aluminum. So I'm going to just have to pound on it, which I don't really like, but hopefully that will do the trick. Yowza! Okay, I'm going to use this wood block, and this is the only mallet I have handy right now. Well, that was not even slightly rewarding. Let's see what kind of a mess we have here. Oh, for crying out loud. It's all... I'm not happy with it. It's all rippled through the middle. Oh, folks, I'm going to abandon this. Whatever alloy of aluminum this is, it's the hardest to work with I have ever used. This wavy, rippled edge is just not adequate. I'm either going to have to find some softer aluminum or maybe some brass. I generally walk back and forth between Pome and Geordie on my way to work every day. It's just across the harbor. But some days when I have heavy loads, it's actually easier to take the dinghy. The only problem with that is this last summer I killed the dinghy motor, so I'd have to row. But there's a solution. But there's yet another problem. I'll explain. And well, this is what happens when you let your dinghy get ahead of you. Now, I cleaned the bottom of this dinghy not more than a few months ago, and it was mussels and scum and all that stuff, but somehow the latest growth on here is genuine nasty barnacles. Well, not perfect, but much improved. I can see another major boat project for next summer. Maybe even bottom paint. Bottom paint on a dinghy. Radical. Well, I can absolutely say, having played with this for a couple of days, this little trolling motor, which was a gift from the very kind Mike Lamont, thank you ever so much, Mike, is an absolute hot rod. And for those of you who are so annoyed when I stand up in the dinghy, the time may have come to sit, because when I wind this thing up, I have to be much more careful than I've ever had to be before. So again, thank you very, very much, Mike. It's an absolute treat to be able to zip back and forth from home to Geordie and carry all my gear without having to walk the whole way. Yeah, let's sit. Just want to take a moment to show you, I got some lovely bronze screws to go with the newly bronzed porthole here. These are from Fairwinds Fasteners, lovely company, lovely products. I hope to be splurging on quite a bit more of their hardware soon. Now, speaking of hardware, the door here on Pome actually has a lock, an old style flag, or I used to call that a skeleton key. Maybe you can all tell me what kind of latch this actually is, but it's not functional because I don't have a key for it. In fact, I expected it to operate a deadbolt, but it doesn't. So I'm going to take this off and take it all apart and see if maybe I can figure out how to set up a key for it. I believe it's probably the original because there are no scars of any previous latches on the door, and it's quite nice. It is a Sargent. I don't really know how effective that is in dating it. Anyway, it originally had a flag key, and what I'm trying to do is figure out if I can find a new flag key for it and have a key for the boat without drilling another deadbolt or something into the back door. So I'm going to take it apart and see how it works and take some measurements and see if I can find a way to get another flag key for it. Is flag the correct term? I grew up calling these skeleton keys, but I'm aware that that's wrong. A skeleton key is a generic or universal key for a regular pin lock. Okay, some lovely old grease in it. So the regular mechanism pulls the latch back based on a cam here. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Okay, so the manual lock from the inside here slides up into that notch in this lever and keeps it from locking. So I would imagine the key lock wants to do the same thing. But yes, I have to get some grease off of this so I can see what I'm doing. I'll pull a few parts off, remembering where they go. Okay, so let's see if I can reassemble this far enough that it will operate and I can see how it works. That little lever went on there. Okay, with it partly put back together, it's clear that the lever from the lower one here will actuate the main unlocking bar here. So basically, if a key is inserted and it turns enough to spring this up, you can then carry on and push that latch, which pulls this latch, which pulls the main latch. In other words, there is quite a bit of force on that. Yeah, interesting. So then the key comes back, this returns, and that latches back down, and the key can be withdrawn. Okay. Well, other than the fact that it takes a lot of force to do this because it has to run all these mechanisms, I now know how this works, and I can now figure out and measure for what kind of flags we need on the key. Okay, first and foremost, the actual bore, 0.21. So if we were to make a key, 0.21, but of course it has to be less than that to fit in. And then the depth of the flag might as well, as far as I can tell, that's a stop on how far it can turn, but it looks like it sits against the inside plate, and the inside plate is flush with the top of this, but there is a boss down there that limits it. So fairly close to 0.34. And the depth of the flag, I mustn't just imagine it's the depth of that slot, because it does have to fit inside both of these. So if I take that and I slide it over, it is 0.47. It's interesting, if it pushes too far, it locks it again. That's pretty darn cool. I do kind of wish the key didn't have to operate the full latch mechanism though. That seems a bit much. If and when I get a key, I'll take this all apart again and clean it up and re-lubricate it. All held together with one screw. Okay. Well, I don't know how exciting this really will be for you, but I have procured a small, cheap flag style, or some might call it a skeleton key, to try and put this lock together. Yes, this was an Amazon purchase. We got two. It's the closest I could get to the profile that I believe I need for the latch set, and I've removed it from the door again. So let's see if we can modify it to work. So I've got an assortment of files, and it should be easy to make pretty quick work of this. I imagine this is pot metal or zinc. Anyway, it's not going to be very difficult to file this down. There we go. So it now fits in. So if the key came in like this, it should have been able to swing around, except it hits that little bump. That little notch has got to go. Okay, let's put it back together. And I won't screw it, but I'll just see if that will actually do the trick. Not quite. It's catching on something. I think a little bit of the inside has to come off as well. Yeah, it's actually too long. And I'll take a finer file and I'll round the edges of the flag a little bit. Let's try that. There we go. Very simple. Put it back together. There we go. Now worked perfectly. And with it locked, lever no longer works, and the key still works. We now have a completely functional key for this mortise lock. And it is absurdly simple. Two. And with it all back together, it opens fine. If I lock it, I'm now locked out. Except for the key. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting the show, because that's what keeps us going. And you can do that through the link in the bottom left on your screen, or other links down in the description. And if you're curious about the work I talked about aboard Geordie that will be starting next week, and you haven't already seen it, check out this video in the top left. This is where we got going on all that work in the forward head. See you next week.